Okay, so thank you so much for the opportunity to speak for the third time in one of my favorite nations in the world. I always start my speeches by saying, you guys are amazing. You are one of the smartest nations I have ever worked with, and you're the most self-critical nation I have ever seen in my life. You always say that you're not good enough, while actually you are beyond amazing. So I want to start by apologizing for being one of the very few that are not wearing a suit and a tie today, but I'm happy, okay? And happiness matters. As a matter of fact, my work at Google, I started at Google more than 11 years ago. I opened half of Google's offices worldwide, and then I moved to Google X, where we build moonshot innovations that completely change the world, solve big problems that affect our world today as the Chief Business Officer. And you know, in my life across Google, we invest so much in happiness of our teams, not because we like to make them happy only, but because happiness is the smart thing to do. People who are happy are more productive, they're more innovative, they call in sick much less often, they stay in our companies, they invent things because they have the empowerment to do it. Happiness is not a luxury. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I really think would propel Korea forward is if we continue to be productive and smart, but also we start to work harder on finding our own happiness so that we can invent a lot more. Happiness, as a matter of fact, goes much, much further beyond that. And I'm going to make a very bold statement here. Honorable Gillard has spoken so elegantly about the future we're facing in the fourth industrial revolution. She covered the topic, a topic that's super fundamental for our success as humanity, which is how to educate the next generation of humans for an age where machines and computers are doing a lot of what we do. I would dare argue that another aspect that would determine the success of our humanity in the next 10 to 25 years is what we teach the machines. Those computers are out there today performing their own intelligence unprompted. They're looking at trends in our world, and they're reading those trends and developing their intelligence like a 2-year-old. Like an infant looking around it and learning from its parents. What would it find? It would find greed, it would find productivity, it would find competition as the value system that it would learn. Honorable Gillard gave the example of how chess today is championed by a machine. The world champion is a machine. In 10 to 25 years, we believe that machines will outsmart our human intelligence. Not only in chess or Go or Jeopardy, but in everything. The idea is, how do we create an environment where we work together with the machines, not against the machines? And how do we do that? By being good parents, by teaching them a value system where they value working with us, not against us. What are those values? They're the values of compassion and happiness. And hence, my personal moonshot. Some of you may know, 17 days after I lost my wonderful son, Ali, I started to write, and my topic of writing was about happiness. I wrote about happiness when I lost my child, my best friend, and my coach. Ali was really my teacher on many, many topics in life. My book was launched around 2.5 years later, in March this year, and it's been a bestseller, an international bestseller in so many places, including Korea. When I set out to write Solve for Happy, I had a target. And my target was to make 10 million people happy. At the time, I thought that if I honored my son by sharing his happiness model, he would be remembered as he actually was, and hopefully he will be happy and proud of me wherever he is right now. The 10 million happy target was achieved in less than 8 weeks. I believe that we're today at somewhere around 23 million people that we've managed to reach with a message of happiness that triggered an action where they took responsibility of their own actions, of their own happiness, and had the tools and resources to learn how to be happy. So we took the target up a lot, along with the champions of the team, and we're now at 1 billion happy. Now, I will dare say this must be one of the most important targets our humanity faces today. Because if we learn to prioritize our happiness and compassion to one another, our machine intelligence developed in 25 years' time will learn to prioritize happiness and compassion with us. This is not a small task. It's a task that I will actually ask all of you to participate by sharing the message and telling people about it, okay? Tell people, if I tell you today some things that will make you happier, please tell people you love how to become happier, how to prioritize their own happiness. In Korea, a big part of the backbone of our economy is work. You are a nation with an incredible work ethic. So one of the areas where we need to prioritize our happiness is at work. And so I'm going to try to give you a few interesting examples of how our personal happiness can be reflected at work. So half of my presentation will be focused on making you happy today, hopefully with tools that you can take to your businesses when you go back tomorrow so that you can make everyone around you happy. I call this the 10 rules of happiness. And of course, people will always say, oh yeah, we have those all over the internet and all over the magazines, the 10 things you need to do to be happy, right? Just like the 10 things you need to do to lose 6 pounds of weight, and the 10 things you need to do to have healthy, long hair. You know, you have those all over the internet. They are all empty promises. None of them really matters. As a matter of fact, if there was one promise that I think works for happiness, it would be this. It's the promise that they say on airlines. You know, when you get on the airline and they say, put your mask on first before you help others? If you want to make your companies happy, the number one rule is be happy. Help yourself first before you help others. The number one rule is be a happy leader. If the leader is not happy, there is absolutely no way the HR department or the whole company can become happy. You understand that? In my work at Google, I started in the very early years of Google. I still claim that I have one of the happiest teams today. Every time a new member joins my team, I tell them one sentence that embodies the entire focus I have on happiness. I tell them, my job is you. My job is to make you happy. Your job is the business. This is what leaders are all about. Our job is to make our people happy. It is to remove the burdens from their way. It's to make it easier, not burden them with more and more and more rules, right? If we make them empowered and happy, they will make us more successful. Of course, that's if we hire the right people. But what is happiness? Why is happiness so hard to find? I mean, it's not a secret that in Korea we have some of the highest suicide rates among teenagers. We have some of the highest rates of depression. This is across the whole Western world. Why is it so hard to find happiness? I mean, we are living in a society where we have never been so bombarded with luxury like we have today. Life expectancy is longer, technology is all around us, everything is easy, right? Why is it so hard to find happiness? And I struggled with that question for a very long time in my life. By the way, I wasn't always happy. By the age 29, when life gave me everything, success, money, a beautiful wife, a beautiful family, I was clinically depressed. I was complaining about everything in my life. And I struggled with that question. Why is happiness so hard to find? Why can I not buy it like I buy everything else? And I realized the answer was really interesting. And it is not philosophical. Happiness is hard to find because we look for it in all the wrong places. Some of you are wearing glasses. You would relate to what I'm going to say. Have you ever put your glasses on and then went looking around for them all over the house? You would never find them, right? How can you find them when they're already on your eyes? You know, sometimes you're rushing out of home and you can't find your keys. You look everywhere at home for your keys. You cannot find them because they're already in your pocket. You cannot find them when you already have them. And this is absolutely true for happiness. If you don't believe me, look at this. Every single infant you have ever seen in your life, including yourself, by the way, when you were that cute age, okay? Every single infant was born happy. They didn't need an Xbox to be happy. They didn't need anyone to tell them, well done, your hair looks beautiful today, to feel happy, right? All they needed was enough to meet their needs of survival. If you gave them enough to survive, if you gave them enough food, enough shelter, enough warmth, they felt happy. Occasionally, a diaper will be wet. They would cry, be unhappy for a few minutes. You change the diaper, they become happy again, right? In technology, we call that happiness is your default setting. You know what a default setting is? When you buy one of those wonderful mobile phones made in Korea, the first day, the phone works amazingly well. The menus are smooth, and the battery lasts a whole day, at least that first day. And then the next day, the battery starts to wear down and you have to charge twice a day. Is there something wrong with the phone? Not really. You start to install weird apps on it, right? You have those apps that are responsible for monitoring everything your friends eat around the world and you have to like, right? You have another app that goes katuk, katuk, katuk every 2.5 seconds, right? What happens is, like Honorable Gillard was saying, you take your phone out, you switch on the screen, you respond to the katuk, and then you know what? Your battery wears down and your phone is not performing anymore. This is exactly what happens to us as humans. As humans, we are born happy. And then they start to install weird applications on our head. An application that says you have to work 18-hour days to succeed. Another application that says you have to look like a magazine cover model if you are to be accepted in the world. A third app that says everyone in school is important, you have to fit in. And we follow those apps. And as we follow those apps, we run out of happiness, right? So rule number 2 is, if you want your company to be happy, allow them to be children. Find the happy child inside. You know what we do at Google? We have slides and football courts and tennis courts, and we have places where they can sit together and play. Not only that, we allow them to be innovative and creative like children. We give them building blocks like Legos, and they build stuff. We don't always tell them you have to build it with 2 red cubes and 4 green cubes. We don't do that. We allow them to be children. When you allow them to be children, not only will they be happy, they will also be innovative. They will also be able to come up with the ideas that you and I, the old generation, cannot see. They are better than we are. They know more than we do. So if you want to see what I just described in a visual form, happiness truly is inside you. It's never going to come from outside you. And for all of your employees in your company, happiness is truly inside them. You can only block it by covering them with obligations, rock after rock after rock after rock. You are only blocking it, and when you block it, what happens is that your employees have that little happy child inside that's trying to come out there and be happy, but's unable to do it. And you know what's the right way to make them happy again? Don't try to give them reasons to be happy. Remember that happy child. The child didn't need anything to be happy. All it needed was no reason to be unhappy. All it needed was no wet diaper. You understand? If there was no wet diaper, our default setting is happy. When we're talking to our teams, our families, by the way, at home, our children, our wives, our friends, if you want them to be happy, don't give them a bonus. Take away their challenges. Take away the reasons they're unhappy. If you take away the reasons they're unhappy, what's left behind is happy. You don't have to generate happiness. You just have to suspend the unhappiness, which is my absolute favorite tool. By the way, I normally write this in the simplest English statement ever. I hope it's translated correctly in Korean. Happiness truly is just the absence of unhappiness. Read it again. It's so simple. Happiness truly is the absence of the unhappiness. If you remove the unhappiness, what's left behind is happy. So with your family, with your friends, at home, at work, if you want to make people around you happy, you know what to do? Remove the unhappiness. So we at Google, for example, we could give employees a transportation allowance because employees sometimes shuttle back and forth between Mountain View and San Francisco. But we don't. We give them a very nice bus where they sit together as a team, they joke, they laugh, they have internet access. We remove the problem of commute. Okay? We don't just throw some money at them and say, okay, you go handle it. Right? We remove the reason for unhappiness. And when you remove the reason for unhappiness, what's left behind is happy. Now, what is happiness? I'm sorry I'm going through this a little quickly because in 40 minutes to try and make everyone happy is not easy, right? But, oh, I did. Okay, that's great. I could have made a joke at the beginning and that's it. Right, what is happiness? I struggled with that question. I remember, at age 29, I was given every luxury in life and I felt extremely unhappy, right? And I struggled. I said, okay, maybe I cannot find happiness because I don't know what it is. So I started to read every book I could find on the topic. I could not find a unified definition of happiness. So I started to look for a definition in the most unusual way, like an engineer would, okay? When we are given a machine as engineers and we don't know how the machine operates, we reverse engineer it. Reverse engineering it means we take as many readings as possible of the performance of the machine, and then we plot them against a chart, and the fitting line between the data points is the algorithm, is the equation that describes the behavior of the machine. So silly as it may sound, I did that back in 2004. I sat down and I wrote every moment in my life I could remember when I felt happy. Okay? I wrote answers to the statement, I feel happy when. Okay? There were things like, I feel happy when I have a good cup of coffee. I feel happy when my daughter smiles. I feel happy when I learn, when I dance, when I listen to music, whatever. Every one of us will come up with different things, right? And that list, I call it the happy list, completely changed my life for two main reasons. Reason number one is, once I wrote them down, I started to find out that they are so easy to achieve, that I can actually invite most of them to my life at least once a day, maybe once a week at most, right? So you know, I enjoy a good cup of coffee. I had two today, and I will have a third one in the airport, I promise you. It makes me happy. Why not? I feel happy when my daughter smiles. I call my daughter. Similarly with your employees, if you find out what makes them happy, you can invite it into their lives a lot more often. You know, a break in an afternoon, one day without a tie, those things make them happy, right? But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is I actually started to invite those things into my life. I started to make them happen day after day after day. I ask you to do that, please. But remember this. This was not the purpose of my exercise. The purpose of my exercise was, what is happiness? How do I know what happiness is? So I took that chart, and I'm not joking. I plotted it against every trend I could find. Happiness, happy moments against my age, happy moments against the amount of hair on my head, happy moments against my weight, anything I could find, trying to find a trend. The only trend I could find is going to surprise you. The only common theme across every moment in your life you've ever felt happy was this. You feel happy when the events of your life seem to be meeting your expectation of how life should behave. Right? You feel unhappy when life seems to be missing your expectations. It's really as simple as that, okay? It doesn't matter if it rains today or not. Rain cannot make you happy or unhappy. What matters is, do you expect it to rain or not? If you were going out today and you were hoping to have a picnic and everyone's going out in short sleeves and it started to rain, you feel very disappointed, right? If you were saying, hey, by the way, it's November, it might rain, I might as well take my raincoat and umbrella, if it rains, you don't feel unhappy at all. Right? It's not the events of life that make you unhappy, it's your expectations, the comparison between events and expectations that make you unhappy. As an engineer, I wrote that in a very simple equation. Okay, I call it the happiness equation. The happiness equation is, your happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should behave. Right? I would want you then to understand the definition of happiness. By that equation, the definition of happiness is not jumping up and down and dancing and having fun. That's not the definition of happiness. The definition of happiness is a content, peaceful feeling with life as it is right now. You look at life around you and you say, you know what? I'm happy with life as it is. I'm okay with this. I don't want to change anything. This is happiness. On top of that, you can add fun. You can add laughing, and you can add dancing, and you can add all of the other things. But the basic rule of happiness is, I feel content with life as it is. Right? Now, if you think about it this way, you would realize something incredibly important. Unhappiness truly is just a survival mechanism. Can you imagine that? All of the unhappiness we've ever felt in our life was because our brains were engaged solving this equation. Your brain looks at the world around you, okay, and it analyzes every complex stimuli that it gets, and then it crunches it into one concept that it calls the events of life right now. Then it compares it to how it believes life should be. If your brain finds that life is exactly what it should be, like now you're sitting here, you're saying, I took time off my work. Yeah, but it's a good use of my time. This presentation is going well. So event meets expectation, you're happy, right? If the chair is a little too hard and your back starts to ache, you go like, no. I cannot spend the whole day on this. This is not my expectation. They should have invested in more comfortable seats, and you feel unhappy, right? So that survival mechanism, believe it or not, when your brain finds that the events are meeting its expectations, you know what it does? It doesn't do anything. It just shuts up. When it shuts up, it leaves you alone, and your default setting as a child is happy. Right? It's only when your brain finds that life is not meeting its expectations that it starts to alert you. But it doesn't alert you with a thought anymore because you never really listen to what it's saying. Okay? It alerts you with an emotion of worry, of guilt, of fear, of sadness, because that alerts you to become to do something about it. So the rule I have about that is I make sure there is no confusion when I work with my employees and my teams at Google around what the events actually are and what the expectations actually are. Right? We do that, the performance review cycles, we do them as routine so that we just give raises and, punishment to employees. That's not what matters. What matters is a complete understanding, a complete alignment, a complete transparency of what the events actually are and what the expectation actually should be. Right? I'll go a step further and then ask you this. Why is it that sometimes the events of our life are okay, but we feel unhappy? Right? I mean, I was 29, I got everything in life, and I felt unhappy. And I'm going to ask you to do a quick test, okay? A quick test that I will ask you to do by doing 2 tasks at the same time. The first task is I will ask you, unfortunately, to think of something that makes you unhappy. The second task is easy. This is Korea. I'm going to ask you to add a few numbers. You're the best math geeks out there, right? So we'll need to do both of them at the same time. Task number 1 is I want you to close your eyes and for 20 seconds, think of something that makes you unhappy. When you find that thing, I will feel that your face will change, and then we will go to task number 2. 20 seconds, find something that makes you unhappy. Okay. Keep that unhappy feeling inside you, please. Until the end of the test, I want you to remain unhappy, and I want you to add the numbers as they appear on the screen. They're going to be a bit fast, so pay attention. Are you adding them? Come on, Google engineers can add those numbers. Are you at least staying unhappy? Okay, add them one more time. It doesn't matter. It's not really a math test, okay? What I just did with you in literally 25 seconds is in what we call in engineering a full cycle simulation. A full cycle simulation is, for you to understand the extents of how a machine operates, you have to take it from its extreme to its extreme, then back. Okay? What I just did here is I started at a moment when you were feeling happy. Everyone was paying attention, everyone was drawn in, everyone was listening to what I was saying. Obviously, there was not much annoying you. Right? T1, T0, you were happy. T1, I asked you to think of something that made you unhappy. Right? You went to your brain and you said, hey brain, bring me something that makes me unhappy. Your brain goes like, seriously? I have 67 things I want to talk to you about that all are making me miserable. Right? Within 4 seconds, you managed to turn yourself from happy to unhappy. Then I showed you a few numbers on the screen. When I showed you a few numbers on the screen, I distracted you, so you stopped thinking about what you were thinking about, and you became happy again. You actually laughed out loud. Right? Here is a full cycle simulation, and I ask you 2 questions to understand the details of how happiness and unhappiness work. Question number 1, has anything changed in the real world between T0 and T1? Anything at all? I imagine that I asked you to think of something that made you unhappy, so you said, when I go back to work, I have an assignment that I need to submit tomorrow, it's going to take a lot of my effort. Right? But that was still true at T0. The assignment was there at T0, just like it was at T1. What's the only thing that changed between T0 and T1? You started to think. Can you imagine? No event triggered your unhappiness. You just started to think about something. And when you started to think about it, you became unhappy. It's as simple as that. Right? When I showed you the numbers, you stopped thinking. And when you stopped thinking, you became happy again. Wow, is it really that simple? Yeah. You start the thought, you become unhappy. You don't start the thought, your life is okay. Right? Question number 2 is even more important. I asked you to stay unhappy for 25 seconds. I could have asked you to stay unhappy for 25 minutes or 25 hours. Can I ask you this question? Would anything have changed in the real world if I had made you stay unhappy for 25 minutes? Nothing at all. right? If you had been thinking about the assignment of tomorrow for the next 25 minutes, would your boss suddenly show up and say, I'm so unfair for asking for it to be tomorrow, I'm going to change my mind and ask for it to be next week? Right? Would the assignment solve itself? Is unhappiness helping us in any way? So, as a full system simulation, this process of unhappiness, I'm sorry to say this, is the most stupid engineering process I have ever seen in my life. It is triggered by nothing. No event makes us unhappy. We just start to think. And it results in nothing. Right? It delivers nothing in the real world. How stupid is that? Like, seriously, how stupid is that? If you had a friend, okay, that came to you every 7 minutes and said, hey, I want you here on the side. I'm going to tell you a lot of things that will make you feel bad about yourself. Okay? And, you know, after 20 minutes, I'm just going to let you go back there and nothing will change. Right? And then 7 minutes later, I will bring you back here and make you feel bad about yourself and poke you in the ribs. Would you jump up and down and say, I love you, friend? Would you? Right? Why then do we let our brains do that to us? Have you ever gone to work and you were, you know, thinking over and over about what your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend told you and feeling very upset about it? And then you got to work and your boss said, show me the report from last week. And you immediately went to your brain and said, oh, brain, stop. We don't want to talk about my boyfriend. We want to talk about the report. Your brain goes, yes, ma'am, I'll do it. Right? Why do we let our brains take us through that cycle? I'll take you back to work here with one very important thing. We had, you know, at Google, so my rule of happiness at work here is clarify and align. Right? Most of the time, it's not the events themselves at all that make people unhappy. What makes them unhappy is the way they think about it, right? We had at Google at a point in time, most of our employees complaining and saying we're not paid well enough, okay? Compared to other tech companies, we are not paid well enough. So we developed two tools. One was called GetComp, and the other was called Total Rewards, okay? Those two tools basically compared all of the benefits we give to our employees on top of salaries, on top of bonus, on top of transportation, on top of parenting, on top of to other companies. And suddenly that clarity immediately impacted employees saying, wow, this is so much better than the other guys, right? Not because we changed any event in life. We just clarified so that they saw the event as it really is and stopped thinking about it incessantly. Now, with that, I have two more concepts and we'll be done. Okay, so please stay focused with me. When you understand the happiness equation and how our brains go through the happiness equation, our brains, by the way, can go through the happiness equation up to 60,000 times a day. Can you imagine that? Because of the megahertz of our brains, we can solve this equation up to 60,000 times a day. The average human will return an answer that something is wrong 60 to 70% of the time. Can you imagine? 60 to 70% of the time, your brain will tell you something's wrong. You know why? Because your brain is a survival machine. It has no interest whatsoever if a tiger shows up to say, how beautiful is this animal, right? It wants to say you're gonna die. It's looking for what's wrong, right? Now, if this machine is the only reason in your life that you've ever been unhappy, because as I just showed you, it's not the events, it's the way you think about them that make you happy or unhappy, then we need to understand how to run this machine like we learn how to run our computers and mobile phone, okay? And there are two things about this machine that are massively misunderstood in the advanced world. So I want you to look in your clocks, in your watches. It's now 10:26. This minute will change your life forever. I promise you that, okay? So two things about this machine. Number one, everyone here in the room has some voice in their head telling them what to do, right? It's like there is someone talking to you saying, hey, Mo, go left, right? Does any of you have more than one voice, by the way? Yeah, of course, right? I have a little orchestra up there. It's like, Mo, go left. No, you're an idiot, go right, right? All the time, right? How many of you believe that this voice is you? You telling you what to do. Raise your hand, please, if you believe that this voice is you telling you what to do. Okay? This is a very common Western mentality. Okay? It started with Descartes when Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Okay? I have a couple of questions that will clarify this for you. Your heart has the biological function of pumping blood around your body. Do you think of yourself as blood? No. right? The biological product of your heart is blood. You don't think of yourself as blood. Anyone here think of yourself as urine? Sorry for the, right? No, your kidneys have the function of producing urine out of, to take the toxins out of your body. No one says, I am urine, right? Yet, everyone thinks that they are the thoughts produced by their brains. Okay? The biological product of your brain is thoughts. Your brain has no other way to communicate to you what the world outside you is all about, so it shares it with you in the forms of words. We start to tell ourselves, I am those thoughts. I am me talking to me. Can I ask you a question? If it was you talking to you, why would you need to talk? If it was you talking to you, why would you need to talk? It's just a piece of meat. It has a biological function, okay? That biological function is to understand the world around it. If you start to understand this, you would treat your brain very differently. You would treat your brain like an external entity. I treat my brain like one of my employees. When it comes to me with a bad thought, I say, that's not good enough. Go back, do some work, bring me a better thought. It's as simple as that. It's not me. I'm the boss. It's the tool. We've treated our brains as the boss, and we are the tool. That's not the way it should be, okay? I am the boss. This brain brings me thoughts, and I choose if I like them or not. Try that exercise. One of my friends calls her brain Becky. And I asked her, why do you call her Becky? She said, Becky was the most annoying kid in school. She was the girl that always told me things that made me feel bad, right? When her brain starts to make her unhappy, she says, Becky, stop. Becky, go find me a better thought. What is a better thought? That's point number 2. A better thought is this. Your brain has 3 types of thoughts. 2 are very useful. 1 is totally useless and harmless. The useless and harmless one is what we call incessant thinking. It's the kind of thought that I told you, think of something that makes you unhappy. It's triggered by nothing and results in nothing. There are 2 other types of thought. One is called insightful. Insightful thinking is problem solving. MIT put people in MRI machines and gave them word puzzles. They noticed that the right-hand side of their brain was lighting up for a while, a second or 2, or depending on the problem, right? Where the brain was actually solving the problem. Then, believe it or not, the verbal association part of the brain started to light up to 8 seconds. Then the participant actually found the answer. Your brain literally solved the problem, then took up to 8 seconds to turn it into words to tell you the answer. It's literally talking to you. It's like someone else talking to you, right? Insightful thinking, however, is useful. It's what makes us, invent Android phones and iPhones and what have you, right? We're problem solving. It's good to have insightful thinking. The other type of thinking that is incredibly useful is what they call experiential thinking. If I asked you to find the yellow color on that slide, your brain will zoom in and find the yellow patch of that brain. It will not think about it. It will not say, I like yellow or I hate yellow. It will just find it. It will experience the world as it is. Experiencing the world allows us to make better decisions. It allows us to engage in the world and actually live, right? Experiential thinking happens in the prefrontal cortex of the right-hand side of your brain and in your insula. A University of Toronto study trained people on meditation for 8 weeks. When they sat into MRI machines, they focused on their breathing, and those were the parts of their brains that lit up. People who thought incessantly and became unhappy, when you put them in MRI machines, the midline areas of their brain light up. When those areas of the brain light up, you get all of those thoughts that are totally useless, okay, and that are really making you unhappy, okay? So I found in my quick life that one of the most important things for my success at work is to actually prioritize happiness. You know why? Because I move every incessant thought that comes to my brain here, I turn it into useful. Okay? If someone comes to me and says, we've been working on a deal for 1.5 years and the CEO changed, I don't sit down and cry. I say, okay, what are we going to do about it? Do we know the CMO? Do we know someone else? Should we go and, right? It's useful thinking. By moving it from here to here, it becomes useful, okay? When it's useful, it doesn't make you unhappy, and it makes you more productive, right? So I gave my brain 2 rules and 2 rules only. Rule number 1 is joyful thinking. Rule number 2 is useful thinking. Let me give you 2 examples before I rush out of this slide, okay? When my son Ali died, my brain started to attack me and said, you should have driven him to another hospital. It's a valid thought, right? If I had driven him to another hospital, maybe the doctor would have not made the mistake that killed Ali, right? I went to my brain and I said, brain, what can I do with this thought? Can I actually go back in time and drive him to another hospital? Is there anything useful that can come out of this other than torturing me? Can we please talk about what we can do? And so my brain said, okay, let's write down his happiness model. Let's share it with 10 million people. Let's have 10 million people remember him. Great thought, brain. Thank you. Let's think about that. The other is joyful thought. My brain will tell me Ali died. It does still today. Every day, I will wake up in the morning and my brain will say, Ali died. You're never going to see Ali again. And I answer my brain and I say, Ali lived. Literally, in a conversation, I say, Ali lived. Can you bring me memories of the incredible 21 and a half years where we lived together? Right? It's not allowed to bring me bad thoughts anymore. And that, by the way, is something that really is important. Most of our leaders that believe that we should make our employees unhappy, they believe that because they think this is going to make us more productive. That's not true. Unhappiness happens here. Productivity and success happens here. Okay? As a matter of fact, by making our employees happy, we're going to become more productive. As a matter of fact, studies will show that happy employees are 12% more productive by design, right? So unhappiness is not a prerequisite to engagement, sound decision-making, success, or impact. That is an illusion that is driving us in the Industrial Revolution to treat our people like machines. So I encourage useful thinking. Whenever one of my employees comes with a problem, I say, what's the solution? What's the answer? Let's think useful. Let's think useful. Let's not dwell on the problem. There are 3 more tips that I'm not going to be able to have time to tell you about today, but here is my last tip. In Solve for Happy, my book, happiness is not that simple. When you really think of happiness as an engineering model, it follows a model that's called 6-7-5. That idea of your brain and how you manage your brain is just one of the 6. Okay? 6 grand illusions, 7 blind spots, and 5 grand truths, or 5 ultimate truths, right? For us to make our employees happy, for us to make ourselves happy is not an easy task. It requires training. It requires investment. It's like going to the gym. You know what that means? You decide that you're going to be fit, and you show up at the gym every day. Only then will you become fit. Okay? If you don't do that, you're not going to become fit, and you're not allowed to blame the world for it. You cannot say, I'm unhappy because I live in Korea and Korea is difficult, right? You are unhappy because you haven't done the work that makes you happy. With that, I would say invest in training yourself, invest in training your families, invest in training your employees. This is what it's all about. I've done several trainings at Google around the concepts of happiness that completely flipped some of our productivity around. Okay? Do that for your companies, do that for your families. And I would just say, if you want to join the mission of 1 Billion Happy, please sign up at 1billionhappy.org. It is going to change our world. And please send a happy wish to my son. He was the nicest man I ever knew, and I think he deserves to be happy wherever he is right now. Thank you very much.
네, 여러분 다시 한번 뜨거운 박수